Hello students, today we are going to do the next story, that is An Angel in Disguise. So before I begin the story, let me introduce you to the author. T.S. Arthur was a popular 19th century American writer. His stories, written with compassion and sensitivity, articulate and spread values and ideas that were associated with respectable middle class life in America. So, this story has been written by T.S. Arthur, who was a popular 19th century American writer. He has used compassion. Compassion means understanding for or pity for the sufferers, and sensitivity means to make someone feel better, healthier and stronger. Articulate means clearly express. So his stories express and spread values that are associated with the middle class life in America. In this story, An Angel in Disguise, T.S. Arthur describes the transformative and restorative power of selfless love. So, in this story, we will read that love can transform. Transform means love can change, and love can restore. Restore means love can bring back or make someone feel good. It relates the advent of Maggie, a frail young orphan, into the lives of wheelwright Joe Thompson and his vinegar tempered wife, Jane, and the miraculous effect that the child's presence has on the woman's character and the happiness that she brings to her adoptive family. So, Joe Thompson and his wife Jane Thompson, they adopt an orphan who is this girl Maggie. And after adopting this girl, how the life of Joe Thompson and Jane Thompson changes. This is what has been described in this. So before I begin the story, let me tell you the main points in the story. The story is narrated in third person by an omniscient narrator. Omniscient narrator means a narrator who knows everything. Begins with a sad tone but ends in a joyous note. So the story begins with a sad tone. We find that the child has become orphan, and then at the end we find that the family, Joe Thompson and his wife Jane Thompson, they adopt the child, and then the family becomes happy. Lays emphasis on the importance of loving and caring for others. So we'll read that how loving and caring others is very important in human life. The story also expresses the true meaning of compassion, kindness, and love. This tells us that we need to be compassionate, we need to show kindness, and we need to show love towards the sufferers, towards the downtrodden. Life is essential for human survival and happiness. At the same time, we will also find in the story that for human survival, love is really an essential component. Children need special care, and we'll also make out that children really are in need of special care. Now, let us begin the story. An Angel in Disguise. Idleness, vice, and intemperance had done their miserable work, and the dead mother lay cold and still amid her wretched children. So this story begins with the explanation where the mother of the children had died. Idleness means laziness, vice means wicked, and intemperance means intoxication. That is lack of patience because of intoxication. So because of intoxication, the mother, she was lying dead and cold amid her wretched children. Wretched means dejected children. She had fallen upon the threshold of her own door in a drunken fit. So the mother was drunk, and in her drunken fit, she had fallen on the threshold and she had died there. And her frightened children, they were there standing around the body. Death touches the spring of our common humanity. That means death is common, death comes to everyone. This woman had been despised, scoffed at, and angrily denounced by nearly every man, woman, and child in the village. But now, as the fact of her death was passed from lip to lip, So this lady who had died, she was despised, she was hated, she was ridiculed, and angrily denounced. And all the people, they denounced her, they rejected her. Every man, woman, and child rejected the lady. But now the lady had died, and now her death was passed from lip to lip. Passed from lip to lip means it was passed on from one person to another in subdued tone. Subdued means in a controlled voice. And now pity took the place of anger and sorrow of denunciation. Now people started feeling pity for these children who were left orphans now. Neighbors went hastily to the old tumble-down hut in which she had secured little more than a place of shelter from summer heats and winter cold. Some with grave clothes for a decent interment of the body, and some with food for the half-starving children, 3 in number. So some of the people, some of the neighbors, they brought some clothes for the decent interment. Interments for the burial of the body, and some people, they brought food for the half-starving children, the children who were left orphan after their mother's death. And these children were 3 in number. Of these, John, the oldest child was John, and he was 12 years old, was a stout lad, able to earn his living with any farmer. He was a strong lad, a strong boy, who could earn his living with any farmer. Kate, between 10 and 11, so the other girl was between 10 and 11 years, was bright, active girl, out of whom something clever might be made, if in good hands. If this girl passes into good hands, then this girl could do something good. But poor little Maggie, the youngest, was hopelessly diseased. Out of the 3 children, Maggie was the youngest, and she was hopelessly diseased. She was suffering from some disease. 2 years before a fall from a window, she had injured her spine. So 2 years before, this girl had fallen from a window, and because of which the spine of the girl was injured, and she had not been able to leave her bed since, except when lifted in arms of her mother. So this girl Maggie, the youngest one, she had injured her spine, and she was a bedridden child who could not move without her mother's help. What is to be done with the children? That was the chief question now. So all the people were concerned about the children now. The dead mother would go underground and be forever beyond all care or concern of the villagers. But the children must not be left to starve. This was the main concern, what is to be done with the children after their mother's death. After considering the matter, and talking it over with his wife, Farmer Jones said that he would take John and do well by him. Now that his mother was out of the way, and Mrs. Ellis, who had been looking out for a bound girl, concluded that it would be charitable in her to make choice of Katy, even though she was too young to be of much use for several years. So one farmer who was Mr. Farmer Jones, he agreed that he will take the eldest son with him, and Mrs. Ellis, she was ready to take the girl, Katy. I could do much better, I know, said Mrs. Ellis, but as no one seems inclined to take her, I must act from a sense of duty, expect to have trouble with the child, for she is an undisciplined thing, used to having her own way. So Mrs. Kellis, although she was ready to take Katy, but she pretended that she is obliging her, she is doing something good for the child, though the child does not deserve her help. But no one said, I will take Maggie. Pitying glances were cast on her wan and wasted form, and thoughts were troubled on her account. So all the people, they felt pity for Maggie, the youngest child in the family, but no one wanted to take her. Mothers brought cast off garments and, removing her soiled and ragged clothes, dressed her in clean attire. So, ladies in the village, they were mothers as well. So, they felt pity on the girl, and that is why they brought good clothes which were cast off, which were not of any use for their children. So, they brought those clothes and then they dressed this girl in clean attire, in clean clothes. The sad eyes and patient face of the little one touched many hearts, and even knocked at them for entrance, but none opened to take her. Who wanted a bedridden child? So no one wanted to take a bedridden child to his home. Take her to the poorhouse, said a rough man, of whom the question, "What's to be done with Maggie?" was asked. Nobody is going to be bothered with her. So, though people were concerned about her, but no one was bothered with her. No one wanted to take this bedridden child home. The poorhouse is a sad place for a sick and helpless child, answered one. So, one person there answered that this child, that is Maggie, she should be sent to the poorhouse. So, poorhouse is a place where poor people, poor children, poor orphans, they are kept and they are helped. So, one person said that poor people is not a very good place for a sick and helpless child. For your child or mine, said the other, lightly speaking, but for this brat it will prove a blessed change. But people, they were very much concerned about their own children, and that is why one said that for your child and for mine, poor house is not a good place, but for this brat means this girl who is bedridden, this will prove, that poor house will prove a blessed change. She will be kept clean, have healthy food, and be doctored. So this man said that in the poor house, this girl would be kept clean, and she would be provided good food, and she would be taken care, which is more than can be said of her past condition. So all the people, they knew her past condition, and that is why they thought that it would be good to send this girl Maggie to the poor house. There was a reason in that, but still it did not satisfy. So there was a reason in that, and it did not satisfy. The day following the day of death was made the day of burial. So next day, that body of the lady, the body of the mother of these three children, was buried. A few neighbors were at the miserable hovel. So that hovel means that poor hut. Only a few neighbors were left in that house, but none followed that cart, as it wore the unhonored remains of its pauper grave. So all the people were there in the house, in that tumble down house, but no one followed the dead body, because they thought that it was the remains, or it was a dead body of a pauper grave, like it was a poor grave which was to be made of this lady. Farmer Jones, after the coffin was taken out, placed John in its in wagon and drove away. So the eldest son John, he was taken away by Farmer Jones, satisfied that he had done his part. And this Farmer Jones, he was satisfied that okay, he is doing something good, he is doing some charity to this family. Mrs. Ellis spoke to Kate with a hurried air, and this Mrs. Ellis, who was ready to take Kate with her, she spoke to this girl in a hurried air. In a hurried air means in a very quick manner. Bid your sister goodbye, and drew the tearful children apart. Scarcely their lips have touched in a sobbing farewell. So Mrs. Ellis, though she pretended that she was being kind to the family, she took away Kate, but she did not let these two girls, these tearful children, that is Maggie and Kate, even kiss each other for farewell. Hastily others went out. So very quickly others also went away from there. Some glancing at Maggie, and some of the people, they were looking at Maggie, and some resolutely refraining from a look until all had gone. Now, all the people, they tried to look at her, but they were trying to avoid a look at the girl. She was alone. Now, Maggie was left alone. Just beyond the threshold, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, paused and said to the blacksmith's wife, who was hastening off with the rest. So now Joe Thompson, who was a wheelwright. Wheelwright is a man, is a person who repairs the wheels. So this Joe Thompson, he paused there. He felt pity for the girl, so he stood there, and then he asked the blacksmith's wife, who was also there but who was hastening off, like who was ready to move from there with the other people, other villagers. It's a cruel thing to leave her so. So this man, Joe Thompson, felt pity for the girl and said that it is cruel thing that we will leave this girl here like this without attending her. Then take her to the poorhouse. She will have to go there, answered the blacksmith's wife, springing away and leaving Joe behind. So the blacksmith's wife, though she was a lady, but she did not give any concern, or she did not show any concern to the girl, and told the blacksmith, told Joe Thompson to take this girl, to take Maggie to the poorhouse. And then this lady, blacksmith's wife, she springed away, she moved away very quickly, leaving Joe behind with this girl, Maggie. For a little while, the man stood with a puzzled air. Then he turned back. For some time, the man here refers to Joe Thompson. He stood with a puzzled air, like he was confused what to do. And then he turned back and went into the hovel again. And then he went into that hut where the girl was lying. Maggie, with painful effort, had raised herself to an upright position and was sitting on the bed, straining her eyes upon the door, out of which all had just departed. So this Maggie, who was a diseased child, she had made some painful efforts, and now she was sitting upright position in an upright position on the bed, and she was straining her eyes, like she was continuously looking upon the door of her house, out of which all had just left, all had gone. A vague terror had come into her thin white face, and this girl was terrorful now. This girl was really fearful now. What will happen to her? How she is going to live her life without any help? Her mother had died, and her elder brother and sister, they were taken away by other people. Now the girl is left alone, and she was worried. What is she going to do? "Oh, Mr. Thompson," she cried out, catching her suspended breath, "don't leave me here all alone." So this girl, the diseased girl, the sick child, she wanted someone, and that is why she told Mr. Joe Thompson, who was standing there, she told him that please don't leave me here alone. She wanted someone to be by her side because she was aware that she will not be able to move without any help. Though rough in exterior, Joe Thompson, the wheelwright, had a heart, and it was very tender in some places. So Joe Thompson, who had a rough exterior, means he was a tall and healthy man. The wheelwright had a heart. He was kind at heart, though he had a very rough exterior, like he looked very rough, very strict man, but in his heart he was a kind man, and he had that heart was tender in some places. His heart had tender feelings. He liked children. So this man, he liked children and was pleased to have them come to his shop where sledges and wagons were made or mended for the village lads without a draft on their hoarded sixpences. So this man, Joe Wheelwright, he really helped the young children. He used to mend their sledges and wagons, and he would not take money, or he would mend their sledges and wagons without any money. "No, dear," he answered in a kind voice, going to the bed and stooping down over the child. So this man answered to the girl, "No, dear, I am not going to leave you," in a very kind voice. And he went near the bed and stooped down. He bent down over the child. "You shan't be here alone." So he assured the girl that you will not be left alone here. Then he wrapped her with the gentleness almost of a woman in the clean bedclothes which some neighbors had brought. Then this wheelwright Joe Thompson, he wrapped her here refers to Maggie. He wrapped this girl with a gentleness of a woman, though he was a man, but he had the gentleness of a woman in his heart. And then he wrapped this girl in clean bedclothes which some neighbors had brought, and lifting her in his strong arms, bore her into the air and across the field that lay between the hovel and his home. So Joe Thompson took the girl in his arms, lifted her, and then he went out of that house where the girl was lying, and he started going towards his own house. He went to his home.